Hi, this is Shannon Knapp, president of Invicta Fighting Championships, and you're listening to Perched on the Top Rope.
The following announcement has been paid for by Perched on the Top Rope.
Welcome, everyone, to Perched on the Top Rope. I am your host, Lee Walker, but today we're not perched on the top rope, folks. Today, we're going into the octagon, and we are speaking with the president of Invicta Fighting Championship, Shannon Knapp. Shannon, how are you doing today?
I'm doing extremely well. Thank you for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here.
And the pleasure is all mine having you here. I will also want to congratulate you on your International Sports Hall of Fame induction.
Yeah, thank you so much. That was very exciting for me.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah. So we have Invicta FC 48 coming up this Wednesday. There's all sorts of places, fans, that you can catch it, whether you catch it on their Facebook page from Invicta Fighting Championships, the YouTube page. You can also catch it in Canada on the Fight Network. And one of the more exciting ones is Access TV. Shannon, how excited are you and the company to be back on television?
Yeah, it's very exciting. We recently, were partnered with Anthem Sports Entertainment. So, they acquired the company, and, it's just good to have, that type of support and to really get back out there and get back, on live broadcast on television.
Yeah. And we've seen that, streaming services are also being the wave of the future when it comes to how things are broadcasting and things to that nature. You brought up Anthem, which, brings me to a question. Anthem Sports and Entertainment also owns Impact Wrestling, which is also on Access TV. We've seen a lot of professional wrestlers cross over into the MMA world, generally the males. Would you be interested if a female wanted to cross over, say from Impact and enter the MMA world? Would that be something that would intrigue you?
Yeah, I'd be very open to, Invicta's here to accommodate female athletes and give opportunities. So certainly if there was that interest, I would definitely entertain that for sure.
And one of the things you just said that with bringing up new talent, you've also said when being interviewed by MMA Junkie, I feel like there's other combat sports I want to tackle. The dream is to launch under the Invicta banner, to have all different genres of combat to really help women move along overall in combat sports. What other combat sports would you like to involve under the Invicta banner?
I'd definitely like to look at boxing, kickboxing, or a Muay Thai, some type of a stand-up style combat genre. And then something, been working on let's call it a formula for a jiu-jitsu style show. So, Yeah, so it kind of, it would be bringing all the different genres in to build just a sports franchise, for women in combat sports, and allow them the opportunities to build their brands and their personas and, cross compete.
Yeah, that would be really, really cool to see. Actually, you don't get a lot of that. Now you've brought up also in interviews when it comes to the female athletes, bringing them together, making sure they're protected. When it comes to Invicta, we've seen the likes of Chris Cyborg, Amanda Nunes, Rose Namajunas, and other great champions, and they've all come from Invicta. How detrimental is Invicta to female MMA?
I think it's incredibly important. I think it's for the health and the overall, for the women. I always say that Invicta, sits out there and makes sure that the athletes get paid. We drive up the market value for the athletes. We, kind of put a barrier of protection, I like to say, around them. But and I may be a little biased, but I've been in the sport for over 30 years now. And I will tell you, one of the greatest things that Invicta does is it really helps nurture you along in a positive way to become the best that you can be. We have divisions that are all female. We have matchups that make sense. We encourage you to fight where you belong. And we push you each time that you compete. So when that day does come, you get in those deep waters, you know who you are. and you know how to be the best that you can be and win those fights. So yeah, Invicta's all about the athletes. Definitely that's our focus in making the sport better, which is, why we would want to continue to build out those different genres.
With those different genres, we see Colorado has just recently adapted the open scoring policy. I've seen you be very vocal and very positive about it. I come from an amateur wrestling background where you know the score during your match and you know everything that's going on. How have the female talent and their coaches been with the open score policy?
No, everybody's been positive. The only reason that we started, we had that conversation, we started it almost 2 years ago in Kansas, was, I would set cage side and I would hear, a corner say to the athlete, you're up, you're down, or something. And then only to find out at the end of the fight, they were completely wrong, or an athlete just feel like they won the fight, So for me, it was, how do I make it a better experience and give the athlete more tools to control their destinies? And, the commission was like, well, what do you think about open scoring? Well, yeah, it doesn't fix the judging. It doesn't fix all the issues, but what it does do is it gives my athletes some control back in their fight, or the corner, if the athlete doesn't want to know, we definitely made it where the corner just sees what the score is. And, I didn't want to take that, the right to choose away from the athlete, but we get amazing feedback. I mean, a lot of them are like, we don't even know how we'd fight without it now. Yeah, it's a huge tool for their success.
Yeah, I think the last thing I would want is if I'm getting into the octagon or any form of sport is to have my coach, put a perceived notion in my head that I'm winning. Because when I don't win, then I'm going to be kind of frustrated. And I feel like it would be taken out on the coach if it was me personally, but I like the idea. I love the open score policy. Like I said, I came from amateur wrestling. So for me, when I heard about it, I thought it was a really, really cool idea. And something else you had brought up, new talent. We saw in IFC 47, there was 4 debuts. IFC 48, while we've seen 2 matches be changed, there's 3 competitors that have made a return for IFC 48. One dating back all the way to 2016. And in total, there are 9 debuts. I've read in interviews where you talk about other companies forming women divisions and there being a struggle to keep talent, but also grow the brand itself. And you had talked about Anthem coming in and being a huge help. Would you say that between 47 and 48, your strategy on newer talent is started to work because you went from 4 to 9 new talents just between one show alone?
Yeah, I think the strategy has always been kind of the same, is to cultivate and get out there and find the best in the world. And, we just happen to, we're signing a lot of new talent. We're bolstering up the divisions again. We're going to be adding a lot of more shows coming up. So, we're in that process of building upward. I guess that's the best way to say it. But, you always need new talent. I always laugh and say, people think that there's just like this plethora of talent out there. It's everywhere, but that's not exactly true on the female side. I always joke and I go, well, little girls don't grow up wanting to be punched in the face every day. So, it's this new thing, we gotta, but we're always looking to find the best of the best, and provide those opportunities. And, we don't hold athletes back. If there's an opportunity that sets out there that we can't match or we can't, deliver on what that offer is, we let our athletes move on. And, it's just having that kind of putting the athlete first attitude. I think that's important to us here.
Yeah. And I'm so glad that you said that because it kind of seems like elsewhere with women's sports, we don't get that. I don't want to name companies or anything because we also see it outside of the mixed martial arts world, where if there's companies that have both men division and women's division, it seems that for every 5 or 6 men matches or fights, you get 1 woman's. Yeah. And here at Invicta, being the co-founder, your mission has always been about the athlete and about the the female talent that you have. In the 30 years that you've been in the business, how have you seen it evolve and change, not just for the women, but for the men also?
That is kind of the cool thing, is because, I did see it on the male side. I did see it, I saw the Ultimate Fighter come along and change the landscape, and push it, catapult it up into that mainstream. I've seen it even with the ESPN deal really move up again. On the women's side of the sport, I saw it from, like I said, that these women had no opportunities to, that kind of build it and they will come type mentality. That once that we formed, this platform and created divisions and opportunities and could kind of organize things, I saw everything change. And of course, Ronda Rousey came onto the scene. I used to call her my tag team partner, because we're both fighting for the same thing. And, it was like that perfect storm, and I think that, that side and this side really pushing forward really changed the game. I mean, the UFC bought one of my divisions, brought the whole division in, and launched, the women officially in that regard. And I just think that it's changed so much. There's still a lot that needs to be done, but yeah, I'm quite proud of where we've come from. That's for sure.
It's been incredible because when I first started watching MMA, it was literally right when Ultimate Fighting Championship just took mixes of different backgrounds. We knew Ken Shamrock's background, but fans kind of forgot that he was a pro wrestler in the 80s and, UFC came along and then he was known for that. But he was there when guys were still wearing regular boxing gloves and karate champions were in their gis. And that's what made me ask, because we've seen it evolve for the men, but we've also seen it evolve for the women also. And that started, in my opinion, when you as a co-founder created Invicta. So I'd like to ask, do you remember the day or what you were doing when all of this came to mind? Like, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I actually do. I was a matchmaker at Strikeforce. I worked on the male side of the sport. I'd had the opportunity because they did they had a couple divisions for women there. So, and when I'm kind of old school, so I'd always been of the mindset with the women, every time one of the promoters would approach me about women, it was always, they wanted hot girls. It was never, Shannon, go out there and find me the best of the best. It was, and that kind of left a bad taste in my mouth because I'm like, you're not going to take a spot from one of my guys for, the sideshow. It doesn't help the sport as a whole. But once I was at Strikeforce, I really got to witness what these women did and how talented they were. And, I always felt like they gave me the skill set that I needed to be able to go out and change the world's mind. So when the UFC bought Strikeforce and they didn't allow women, the athletes came to me and they're like, what are we going to do? And that's really when I kind of stopped and took a look at the landscape. And I was like, you know what? It's not that there aren't good women. And it's not that these women don't know how to fight. What it is nobody's just taking the time to provide them with opportunities. And that is the day that the light clicked.
That is awesome. I always like hearing people, when they have a goal or a dream. I want to know, like, what were you doing when you had thought of this? Because sometimes for some people that becomes like an afterthought. Oh, what was I doing? But then for some people, it was like, that was their epiphany. That was their, I'm all in, put the poker chips in, and just like in pro wrestling, they had a women's evolution where the women in the sport had become frustrated with their roles in WWE itself. If it was a 2-hour television program, a women's match might have had 2 or 3 minutes. Same with pay-per-views. So that's why, I had asked that question, because there's always someone has to be the voice. In my eyes, when it comes to the female talent, you are the voice for the female talent in MMA. You've done so much for the industry when it comes to the women. And as a fan of that, I thank you.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Really kind. Well, I like a good fight,
Yeah.
So I felt like I was the person that could step up in here and sling it out.
You brought up Ronda Rousey, who we've seen now as a crossover superstar from MMA now into professional wrestling. We've seen that with others, and we've seen that from Invicta, Shayna Baszler, Jessamine Duke, Marina Shafir, Paige Van Zandt. Have all gone from Invicta. Paige went to UFC, but, the others went into the professional wrestling world. Earlier, you had said you are open for women to get opportunities. these women saw opportunities elsewhere. How happy are you for their success in pro wrestling?
Incredibly happy, yeah, I mean, I worked with Shayna at Strikeforce. I've worked with all those athletes, Invicta, you know, once an athlete, my athlete, you're always my athlete. And,
Yeah.
and I out there want to champion them to be the best that they can be. And, it's amazing that, the WWE opens their doors and embraces them. I love that factor as well. And I was going to say, when you were talking about the women, don't you really feel the women in wrestling, like that show, what was it called? Divas, that really kind of spotlighted and gave the fans an opportunity to see what these women went through. I watched that show a few times, and I was like, oh, wow, this is super cool because I'm getting that behind the scenes look at what these women go through. Now I can identify with them. Don't you think that was a big part of what, really kind of changed the game for them as well? That the company finally opened the doors and said, hey, look at these women, they're talented.
I think it was an extremely big deal for the women because before that, like the reality wrestling shows that we had were more of competitions, featured more men than women, to get a contract to the company, where this had already their established stars. And it let us see what they have to go through from media and just as them as, females, the difference, for them with MMA and wrestling is, they're glammed up. They've got makeup on, they're sitting in a chair to have all their makeup done, their hair done, this done, that done, nails done. So to me, it was eye-opening to see in wrestling just how much we glorify the looks, as you had spoken earlier with Strikeforce being like, yo, get us the hot girl. Or that, get us the hot women and stuff like that. And you're like, I'm not here for the sideshow. That's how, these women are all glammed up in wrestling. That's why, I would love to see them, if any would go from wrestling to MMA. We haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I was thinking that there was one, and I cannot remember her name for the life of me. I thought there was one, or maybe it was just that I read she was contemplating moving over to MMA, something like that.
As far as I know, there hasn't been any. There might be independent, women from the independent scene that have crossed over that
maybe.
I know about.
Maybe
but
that's something I read. But you're
as
talking
far
about
as
higher elevated.
Yeah, as far as higher elevated talent, we've only seen the men like Brock Lesnar and
I remember Brock coming over.
Yeah, and guys like that coming over.
I had Bobby Lashley in Strikeforce. Yeah, I had him at Strikeforce, and Kurt Angle kind of came around. It was years ago, back when I was with the International Fight League. Yeah, Kurt Angle, he never fought, but he did kind of come around and there was talk. So, yeah, I mean, they've always kind of intertwined to some degree. It's kind of interesting.
I would love to see a female wrestler cross over into MMA. I would love to see it. So if any of you,
right?
Yes, I'm hoping that one day it happens because, like I said, we've seen all these men come over and do it. I'd like to see a female come over and do it. But back to the card. When it comes to you brought up your matchmaking and how much you put into it for these matches to make sense. Your main event, the Bantamweight Championship, Tanisha Tennant taking on Olga Rubin. Again, Olga's one of those. It's it's going to be an IFC debut, but she's a former main eventer in Bellator. Yeah. When we bring up matches when in the making sense. How does somebody go from another company? And I'm just going to say, even though they're a main eventer, you bring them in and getting a title shot.
Yeah. She, for us, she checks all the boxes. She's got the experience, she's on a win streak. She's, been a main event again in a previous organization, a well-established one. It's not like it was some, random local show or something like that. But she has the credentials to be in that spot. And, and actually, this is a fight that a lot of fans have wanted to see come together. They're both incredibly talented. And I think the fans are just really, it's a matchup that, it's going to be exciting. It's going to be a good fight. And anytime you've got the Invicta belt, I don't know if you got to see the belt since you like to collect things, but yeah, a big part of designing that belt, it's I always wanted the athletes to have something they could be extremely proud of. It's got crystals in it. It's like, it's an amazing belt. Tanisha doesn't want to give it up, and Ogla's coming to get it, so
Yeah.
anytime you've got that in play, it already creates that scenario of having a great fight, but they're both tough.
Yeah. And fans, if you go over and you watch on YouTube, Invicta Fighting Championship, you can watch the promo, and Tennant, it's her first title defense. She seems very, very eager to be able to defend the championship, which really struck me. If I'm a guy who wins a belt, I want to defend it, but I want to enjoy my time with it too, and she's very eager to defend that, which to me brings even more excitement to the fight.
Well, you know why that is, right, Lee? Is because in the industry, there's that old adage that you can win the belt, but it's not really your belt in the championship until you defend it.
Yeah.
So that's that, it's kind of that old school mentality.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that probably plays a factor in.
Yeah.
So,
it's going to make for a very exciting fight. And you, in your co-main event, also the bantamweight, we have former UFC also making her IFC debut is
Bernardo. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I was gonna pronounce the first name wrong, so I was gonna just pronounce the last name, Bernardo, and she's taking on Yana
Gadella.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I am the worst.
I tend to pronounce names wrong a lot, and I do apologize to those fighters. Have you ever had a situation, where you're bringing in somebody, from another company, say a former Bellator, former UFC, or, from here, from there? Have you ever had where the fighter's like, whoa, I'm not ready for that yet?
No, I can't think of any situation like that. Coming in from another organization, like one of the top organizations, no, definitely. A lot of times, if an athlete's been in one of those organizations, Invicta is a perfect home for them to come to, maybe they had a struggle, maybe they didn't, but, we definitely help to lift the athlete up, rebuild confidence, and, really build a solid foundation for them. So sometimes this is a good place to come when you might have had some struggles, because I think we're good at what we do here. I'm a little biased in that area, but I feel like we're really good, and we can help an athlete get back on track and build towards where they want to be.
Yeah, that is awesome. And I do want to ask this real quick, because I brought it up earlier. It's Amber Leibrock who's making her return since 2016, as she takes on Morgan Fryer.
Yeah.
Another one making her IFC debut. When it's been like that long, for a fighter, making their return to the company, how, for you, how excited are you, to see their change, their growth, to see if they have a different style?
Yeah. I mean, it's always good. Amber was here in 2016, then over to Bellator, now she's coming back. Like I said before, if you've been my athlete once, you're kind of always my athlete. Yeah. So the doors are always open. And to have an alumni come back and be able to work with them and, have that opportunity to be part of their story again, I always am grateful for that. So, yeah, she's talented, and, hopefully, I know that they're going to put on a great fight. They met in the office yesterday, and, I heard Amber came up and was just like, hey, nice to meet you. Let's make this happen. Let's make it good. And that's an amazing attitude to be going into, to a competition.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially when you can be civil in that first meeting, as we, sometimes see in weigh-ins, sometimes that civil goes out the door.
Yeah.
That sometimes those can be a whole nother story. I've seen those happen a lot. I'm excited for this, guys. Wednesday, make sure you tune in. Tons of ways to watch Fight Night in Canada, Access TV. here in America. You can watch it on their YouTube channel, Invicta Fighting Championship, and on their Facebook Live, Invicta Fighting Championship. Shannon, we've talked a mix of MMA and we've talked a mix of wrestling. Well, one thing that really piqued my interest, aside from Wednesday, is I got to ask, what involvement did Invicta Fighting Championship have to do with the Bruno Sammartino documentary?
Trying to think what documentary. Remind me, because
He's a famous wrestler out of the 70s and 80s who holds the WWF record for the longest time as a WWF champion, like 7, 8, 9, 10 years or something like that.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Now, I was like, for a minute, I was like, what did Invicta have to do with it? It's like, what? Yeah, that Anthem.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, because, you threw me with the question for a minute. I was like, what? I was like, what does Invicta have to do with that? I haven't got to see it all yet. I've got to see portions of it, but I think they did an incredible job with that documentary. I mean, I think it really told a story of someone that had a huge impact in the sport. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just about finished with it, but not quite. So,
but it piqued my interest because I'd seen you retweet it.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, this is interesting.
Yeah. When I first thought you meant like, what did Invicta Company have to? I was like, remind me. I was like, did I miss something? But no, I know what you're talking about now. Yeah, because they'd sent me the documentary and I started watching. I was like, this is really cool. This is great. I mean, I didn't know about this guy, but now I'm really invested in the story. So. Yeah.
With the partnership with Anthem, are there any other plans in the works with Invicta? Could we see Invicta on TV more? Could we see a show like a Contender show fighting for a contract? Is there anything like that in the works?
We got a lot of stuff in the works right now. We're talking about launching other genres of combat for women underneath the banner. We've got some deals we're working on for more televised opportunities, plus streaming and things like that. So it's always a work in progress of continuing to find the right partnerships. Mm-hmm. But things look very bright right now. Some of them I can't talk about, obviously, because they're not finalized, but I'm very optimistic about the future. And I think the fans are going to be super excited about some of the things we've got coming up. I think it's really going to, open up the doors and provide us a lot more exposure to really, connect with the fans, a lot more fan engagement. That is, mm-hmm. Another piece of that puzzle. But there's a lot of good stuff. I mean, I'm excited, and I'm really excited to be able to branch out and really, expand on the Invicta brand. That's what I'm really excited about. Helping more women in different sports.
Awesome. And, as we see behind me, I am a collector of figures and ring worn gear and other things like that.
Awesome.
Would there ever be a point in time where IFC maybe auctions off ring used items like gloves from certain fights?
So do you need a pair of gloves?
I'm a collector, so I'm asking not just for myself as a collector, but would there ever be something like that where Invicta goes, down that line sometime?
Yeah, absolutely. We have done some of that stuff in the past, but that's another fan engagement area that we're really looking to bolster up. But I will tell you this: I will get you a pair of gloves. I'll send you a pair of gloves.
Oh my God, awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. I'll send you a pair, for supporting us and lifting us up. I'll send you a pair of gloves.
The future shows will thank you because I will proudly display them in a shadow box here.
Yeah, and actually I'll try to get it, because you interviewed me for 48, I'll try to get everybody to sign them for you.
Oh my God, thank you. So, I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you taking the time for us and, getting the word out there because it takes all of us.
Oh yeah, I really appreciate that. And one of my last questions here is going to be, when can us New Yorkers expect Invicta Fighting Championship to make an appearance?
That's a great question, because we are currently working on some locations. There is a possibility that we could be over in that area in November. There's something, we're working on. I can't talk a lot about it, but it would be close enough. Where are you at in New York?
I am in Oswego, so I am 45 minutes from Syracuse. I'm about 3 hours from Albany and Buffalo. And if it's New York City area, I'm like 6 hours.
Okay. Well, it might not be as close as what you like, but we, definitely obtainable. We've even played around with doing, an Invicta show one night and then, the next couple nights Impact. So we've played around with a bunch of ideas. So it might be something that could be, a fun opportunity for you to hit both.
Well, I will tell you this. I do have a working relationship with Impact where they send me interviews and stuff like that with their talent. I have driven the 4 or 5 hours. So if it's in New York, I have a car. That's not an issue.
Okay. Gotcha. All right.
I am always willing to make a drive, especially for something that I'm passionate about. And, MMA is something I've always been passionate about. I've been watching since the early 90s. Ken Shamrock, Frank Shamrock, Dan Severn, Tank Abbott. Those are the names that I grew up on.
That's the old school. That's my realm.
Yes. Those are the names that I grew up on. So as a fan, I've watched it evolve, and I wanted to hear from a perspective of someone who's worked in the business, how they've watched it evolve. And it's been an incredible journey for MMA, and not just MMA, but for the women of MMA, which has me even more excited. Because again, I'm somebody who, when I watch, I pay attention to things, and, where you have a company that has both men and women, for every 5-6 men fights, there's only one woman's fight. And I'm somebody who is in support of the equality, not just when it comes to the pay-per-view time, the television time, but also how those fighters and those female athletes are treated compared to the men. And something we're seeing right now is in the WNBA, where we're seeing Brittney Griner over in Russia, pleading guilty to charges of having marijuana oil carts. I want to ask, how do you feel about the situation at hand that's going on? Because a lot of men, I'm just going to say it's a lot of men doing this that I see. Well, she shouldn't be over there, this and that. The NBA makes 130 times more than the WNBA, this and that. Those women are paid fair. When you look at someone like LeBron James, who's paid multi-millions of dollars, compared to a female in the WNBA who's paid a fraction of that, because I believe Brittney's only paid $120,000. She travels to make the extra income.
Right.
I guess I'd like to know how you feel about the situation at hand, and what would you tell your fighters if they were, to be, went over to Russia, and, would you give them any sort of warning, or maybe even try and talk them out?
Well, number one, I wouldn't want them to go there now, now, currently. But I think that, first of all, I want to say this about her. And I do keep up on the news, but I've been really busy this week, so I haven't got to see everything. But I like how she, let's call it, womaned up and said, yes, I did do this, but yes, it wasn't intentional. And yes, I'm sure that, when you play any kind of sports that's physical like that, you're going to have those injuries. And I am positive that there probably was a doctor that prescribed that. I think that anytime you go into a different country, I think it's very important that you always know what you can and cannot bring, and that you're very conscious of what you're doing. But but she has the right to make money. She was there because, she was getting, I don't want to call it better treatment, but her pay scale was more elevated than she could attain here in the United States. You cannot fault someone for trying to make money or to elevate, their income. We all do that. And this was a choice she made. I don't think that we should say, oh, that's what you deserve because, she made that choice. I think we need to stand behind our Americans like we would if it were a male or anybody else. There have been
Yeah.
many males that play in leagues outside of the United States. I think that people sometimes are just really negative, and I think they look for ways to pick at people, whether it's she's a female, whether it's she's gay, whatever they want, whatever their agenda entails. But I'm not one of those people. And at Invicta, we support people. We lift them up. We don't, we're not going to succumb to that type of thinking. So I wish her the best, but I really admire the fact that she didn't try to get out of it by lying or, she just came forward with the truth. I can really respect, someone doing that.
That was very well said. Thank you.
Oh,
For any females out there looking to break into MMA or looking to break into Invicta, what sort of advice would you give them?
Just keep fighting the good fight, get in there, put the work in, make some noise. I mean, message me, social media, do whatever. I will see you eventually. I'm not on all the time, but I take the time, it's not somebody else doing it. Shoot me a message, I'm going to read it. Eventually I'll get there. I'll read it. I'm all about lifting you up, telling like, hey, I see you, keep going. Maybe their record isn't where it needs to be right now, but giving someone that encouragement and saying, listen, I see you. You're on my radar. Get in there, and do your best. Keep me posted. Sometimes I get messages like, oh, I got a fight coming up. My dream is I want to be an Invicta. I'm like, okay, tag me in. Let me know when that fight's going to be, and I'm going to make the effort. I think it's important that I make the effort, and kind of let people know that I see them, instead of somebody working all the time and nobody's responding. I think that's the worst thing that you can do to someone. If you've ever applied for a job and you never hear back, or, just at least call us and say, hey, whatever you got to say, if you say we suck, whatever, just give us some feedback. I think feedback is really important.
Yeah, it really is. And thank you for that. And where could fans find you on social media, or where could aspiring women for MMA be able to find you on social media?
Well, me personally, everything is at Shannon Knapp. So it's the SHAN and then KNAPP. And then, of course, it's at Invicta Fights and Invicta Fighting Championships or Invicta FC. Our social media got it all across the platform. So, yeah, make some noise. Send me videos. Don't give up. Certainly, you make enough noise, I'm going to see you.
Yeah, awesome. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule
Absolutely.
to do this interview. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the president of Invicta Fighting Championship, Shannon Knapp. You can catch Invicta Fighting Championship 48 all over the place. If you're in Canada, you can catch it on the Fight Network. In the States, you can catch it on Access TV. You can catch it on their YouTube channel, Invicta Fighting Championship, youtube.com/Invicta Fighting Championship, and on their Facebook, which is the same, facebook.com/Invicta Fighting Championship. Shannon, again, I want to thank you for coming on today. I hope that we can do this again in the future, and I hope that I can start getting some of the female talent part of Invicta and get some interviews with them also. Fans, remember, spoiler freeze, the way to be. We're out.
Hey everyone, thanks for watching that video. If you liked what you saw, make sure you hit the like button and make sure you hit subscribe so you can get all our content here at Perched on the Top Rope. And fans, remember, spoiler freeze, the way to be. I'm out.